What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the 3B podcast, a special Wednesday edition, right, Marv? You were a little busy, unavailable in the earlier part of the week.
Yeah, sorry. The real job has to take precedence sometimes. So once it starts, paying the mortgage, then we'll be free anytime.
Oh, any day now. That big check's going to be rolling in for us to quit our full-time jobs and do this full-time. And our special guest tonight will be included on the side if we get something that big. But Rob from Rob's Rankings is joining us tonight, and with you from the first kick to the last pitch. I almost always forget to say that anymore, but this is a baseball heavy show. That's a baseball shirt you're wearing. You're ready for this thing, right, Rob?
Yeah, I am. I appreciate y'all bringing me on board today, and look forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So first things first, Marv, baseball update for the boys. How are we looking over there?
Man, Little League season is winding to a close. They both have 2 games left. For travel, they're both doing like a one-day Mother's Day tournament, which is always fun because I'm having – for my youngest son's team, I'm having the moms come out and coach bases during the game, and they're going to change their walk-up song to like K-pop Demon Hunters and Taylor Swift and all the stuff that the kids hate. And then once Little League's over, we'll pause travel for a little while as they both get ready for their All-Star District tournaments in Wilson.
Nice, very nice. That nice stadium in Wilson, right?
Yeah, man, they have a beautiful complex for Little League baseball there. It's like the envy of everyone.
Yeah, makes sense. A couple shout outs from TJ and Ben James early on here. We will touch on this, but Ben James, Cycler Tangler for A-State baseball, throwing the no-hitter versus Little Rock, former sunbelt member Little Rock. They hammered them, which was awesome to see. So definitely a fun one on tap for you tonight. And we're calling this one RPI, or Reputation Projection Injustice, because you can make the numbers do a lot of things, right, Rob?
Yeah, you can. You've got all kind of, metrics out there, and, RPI, we'll get into it a little bit later. You got that one, that's the main one. And I don't know if y'all pay too much attention to it. It's DSR, that's out there, and maybe some others, but those seem to be the 2 main ones. They may have added a third one this year, but yeah, you can make the numbers do a lot of things. And so we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, it's interesting what you can do with a win and a loss, and how far you can go down with just one game.
Hopefully they add RR soon for Rob's Rankings, because there's a reason Rob has been invited onto the show. And I was telling him before we went live here, and Marv knows this as well. If you compare his list to others, it's like, I don't know how many other people are looking at it on a regular basis, but I'm more often agreeing with what I see from Rob than a lot of other outlets. And some of these other outlets are just crazy different. Rob seems to make sense to me, and I really agree with what he's been doing along the lines, and happy that we could get him on here and share his methods for his madness for the people here. And obviously, one thing we got to talk about that was maddening over the weekend is your performance on the picks for the week, Marv. What are you doing here?
I have to say I'm embarrassed. I wish you would get that off the screen as soon as possible. For those that are only listening, I went 7-0, and it was the greatest week ever.
Except that kind of backwards, but yes.
Oh, that's dyslexia kicking in. Yeah, I stunk this weekend. That was really bad. I mean, we could go through it, right? Like, and obviously no one saw Georgia Southern taking a game from Coastal, right?
Well, Seth did talk about it last week, but he said more of the lines of like, how crazy would it be if they took one, and what would that do to Coastal? But he said, I'm not taking it. But what if it happened? And then it did.
In my opinion, there were several upsets this weekend, right? Like JMU winning the series against Marshall. I'm going to continue to pick against App, because every week that I've done that, they've won the series. I get to wear the hoodie for like the 4th week in a row, not a sweep, but a series win. So I'm not going to apologize for that one. Southern Miss hadn't had a lot of sweeps this year. UM's a pretty decent team. Been in South Alabama taking it in San Marcos, right? So a lot of things that I just didn't see coming again. My pick stunk. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, yeah. And shout out to Dave Schultz from Locked On Sunbelt as our special guest picker of the week. He did very well. Technically, him, Seth, and I all went 2-5 for the series. And again, and for Rob, I don't know how much he's followed this. I know he's liked and interacted with some of our posts, but the way we work it here is if you get the series right, it means next to nothing. You have to get it exactly correct or you don't get the W. So we grade this is a very hard grading scale. We understand that, but that's what's kind of separates us from everybody else. I think it's a little easy a lot of times to pick the winner. Like you said, Marv, a lot of people went the other way with the JMU Marshall one, right?
Yeah.
But more often than not, you're seeing Coastal. Everyone picked Coastal to win, and they did. So everybody would have had a win there. Everybody here picked the sweep, so they got 0 points. So it's just kind of how this game works, and it's been really fun. We did do a tiebreaker for the overall record, which sat me at the top, baby, 15-6 overall. Dave actually was behind Seth at 13-8 overall. Seth went 14-7, so one of Seth's better weeks of the season. And then Marv still, I think, in the lead overall with the overall record, but I think that's one Seth's really close on too. We'll have to look on how that works.
It's dwindling down, man. I was way ahead a couple weeks ago, but my picker's been off.
Yeah, well, we're going to get Rob back involved here now because this is a specific post that he absolutely interacted on earlier this week. We've got our Sunbelt power rankings here. And Rob, I know it's probably changed because we do these before the weekend. So that obviously is going to change a couple of those spots. But what about that top three? Is it pretty solidified there?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think ours look pretty close from what I recollect. I don't have mine in front of me right now. But, yes, I think last week, I think I had App State over South Alabama, but I have South Alabama. I'm pretty sure at 3 right now. Those top 3, obviously Coastal and Southern Miss are ahead of the pack, and it gets a little bunched up. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit later with the next 5 or so teams. But, I think South Alabama may be getting ready to separate itself from some of the other teams.
Yeah, I mean, Marv talked to that a little bit, but I did not see them. Well, look, I mean, most people didn't pick South Alabama to even win the series over Texas State, but they swept them, which, again, like Marv just said, and we said, like, I think South Alabama's solidly in that 3rd position now. I think before this weekend, I think actually all 3 of us had South Alabama in that 3 spot, which was a little surprising to me that nobody thought, maybe looking ahead that Texas State could have come out on top and had that 3 spot if, they had swept the weekend or whatnot. But we look pretty smart now, all 3 of us here on screen, Rob, myself, and Marv, because we all had South Alabama up there already. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, from 4 down to, I don't know, maybe at least Arkansas State at 8, maybe all the way down to ULM at 9. Like, that's just a flip of the coin at this point, I feel like, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think one or two's got to make a move. Obviously, if Coastal and Southern Miss keep it going, they're looking in good shape for a lot of different things. Hosts, national seeds. It's all in front of them. The other ones, I mean, it's in front of them too. A lot can happen in 2 weeks, but I mean, I think Arkansas State, South Alabama. I mean, my goodness. Louisiana Lafayette has a big opportunity ahead of them playing Coastal. So, I mean, hell, Texas State can make a run, So, I'd like to see at least another Sunbelt team get in it. But if they're just beating each other up and none of these teams can win 2 series in a row, talking about Arkansas State, South Alabama, Louisiana, Texas State, then I mean they're probably going to be sitting on the sidelines. A couple of them got to make a move, and
that's a good point.
I'm just kind of feeling a little bit South Alabama, but Arkansas State I think they're probably in an even better position as far as their RPI right now is better. They're sitting at 45, I believe. So if they can beat Texas State and then South Alabama, they're looking pretty good.
Yeah, that's a great point. Marv, any thoughts on the power rankings as you see them? I mean, obviously, again, not the same as what we're seeing on here probably in your head now, but.
No, I mean, in my opinion, as it sits right now, the top 4 are the top four, right? So App's played themselves into that with the series win at Troy. They've got Louisiana coming to Boone this weekend. That's a really big series because I think if App's struggling RPI wise, we're going to get in that in a little while. But if they win that series, they're looking at probably getting a bye in the tournament if they can make a push there. But the flip side of that is Louisiana is at like a 54 RPI, I believe. So they win the series against App, and I think they have Coastal the next weekend. They can make a real big push. South Alabama's situated pretty good. I think if you had to look at one of those and say, okay, it's a lock that Coastal and Southern Miss are in, right? We can debate whether or not they're going to get to host. I think Coastal definitely has probably earned the right to host and get a national seed. Could South Alabama be that third team in? Like we're really trying to see now, can we get a third team in? That's kind of what it boils down to. So, like I said, as we sit, the top four, the next four, you can shuffle the deck, pull them out however you want. Georgia Southern's dead last. And we got a lot of teams these next couple weekends that are fighting just to make the tournament. You have like a four-way tie for 11th place right now with Texas State, ULM, Georgia State, and JMU.
I was going to say, we can bring that up now. We'll jump into this before we go into the rankings. How about that? We'll just flip it a little bit. So this was the conference standings as of Monday morning. Obviously, there's Tuesday games. We'll jump to that in just a moment. But I do want to show that these were the standings for the conference. Obviously, those won't change throughout the week because we're playing out of conference games. But you see the overall records there. In the white numbers beside it is the RPI, most notably Coastal Carolina at 17, Southern Miss at 10. But, your third, fourth, and fifth place teams are much worse in the RPI than the Cajuns down there in sixth spot. So, they're at 44, and then A-State at 51. So it's interesting. And then you got Texas State, which is an anomaly because they're on the right side of this graph of the standings, 27 and 21 overall. 57 in RPI, but they're over there with all the teams that are in the hundreds or worse. So it's very strange to see how this conference has kind of beat up on itself. So let's jump over.
It blows my mind how you could be the third ranked team in this conference, which is an awesome baseball conference, and have a close to 100 RPI.
At Yes. So this is now what it looks like after yesterday. We know Coastal went down to Clemson at home, and they dropped to 22. Southern Miss actually goes up without having to play a game from 10 to 9. App State drops a little bit down to 99. And then South Alabama at 65, Troy at 56. It's awesome to see those two teams who hate each other so much be neck and neck there, neck and neck in the standings and in the RPI. I mean, it's going to come down to when they play. I think they have it's not this weekend, right? Isn't it the last weekend of the season when those two go head to head?
I'd have to double check. I don't know right off the top of my head, though.
I did look at that to see when they were going, and I didn't put it in front of myself.
Troy's playing South Alabama this week, I believe.
This weekend. Okay. Yeah, there seems to be.
And they end with Monroe. Troy ends with Monroe. Sure does.
Okay. Interesting. I feel like they should do the football thing and have everybody play their rival the last weekend of the season. That way, if you've got let me see. I'm trying to think of a rivalry here. I mean, it's not a great example this year, but let's say Georgia State was up towards the top and they're playing the worst team in the conference in Georgia Southern. And Georgia Southern gets to take their RPI way down by getting the victory. I mean, I think those aspects could be interesting and intriguing for the general public to take in.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, Rob, what are you looking at here with RPI overall as a big component, as we know, for postseason baseball?
Yeah, just RPI in general. I mean, honestly, I like RPI. I think over the years, it's done a better job than, say, whatever metric they use for college football. I think there's less arguments as far as, it's not perfect and everyone's going to argue, well, this team should have hosted or this team should not have hosted. But, if you kind of compare it to college football arguments for the national championship teams or playoff teams, I think it does pretty good. I like it. It's got its shortcomings. We all of us hate to see, you win a game and you lose points. That's a tough pill to swallow. And because of that, you're seeing all these teams later in the year, canceling games. We see it today. I looked, a bunch of teams canceled yesterday, of course. And so, that's messy. We don't like to see that. But I think it's pretty good metric overall. I really do, as much as I may complain about it from time to time. So.
Yeah, I think it definitely comes to a head here at the end of the season, Marv. I don't know how much you've seen of the cancellation of games, because not a ton of them in the sunbelt, luckily, but there have been some bigger notable one I can think of for an example, and it's a good one because of what happened afterward, is UNC was supposed to play Queens from Charlotte area, and Queens does not sit highly in the RPI. They did beat South Carolina earlier this year, although South Carolina obviously not having their greatest season either. UNC cancels the game with Queens. They end up playing Duke. Queens does by the end of the week, and Queens beats Duke. So it's like, oh, now we know why UNC canceled. Yeah. But let's be honest, had UNC even touched the field with Queens, their RPI takes a hit.
That's all risk, no reward.
Yeah. It's a good point. Good point.
On that note, I saw a tweet, I guess it was tonight, from Mississippi State's head baseball coach. Y'all may have seen it. It's a tweet, or it was a quote someone tweeted, and he was talking about this, and he said something to the effect of, he didn't like to see these teams cancel, and he says he'd like to think that karma kind of get some of these teams, and that's why they played. I can't remember who they played yesterday, but not a powerhouse team. It's Nick. I don't want to say who it was, but they beat them to death. It didn't help them RPI wise, but they said, we want to play these games. We scheduled them, and we're going to play them and play each one to help us get better. And we got better tonight. I think it's pretty close to what he said. So, but you can't blame some team. I also get it. I hate to see them cancel these games, but I think I tweeted earlier this week. I think South Alabama cancel a game last week or this or something. I said, well, good for South Alabama, because all the SEC, not about all the SEC teams, but a lot of these powerhouse teams are, like you said, North Carolina, whomever, are canceling these games. So, I guess South Alabama has the right to do it too, because they're counting on these RPI points. So you don't want to see everyone begin to do it, but I don't know. Maybe they can come up with some solution to prevent it. Because it's becoming more and more often. We're seeing it over the last few years.
If you cancel a game not due to weather, you lose 10 points in RPI automatically. That's where we go.
There was someone who came out, and I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but somebody that has a say, because Dave Schultz from Locked On was talking about it this morning. I think it was this morning. Maybe it was yesterday morning. That someone said they would punish teams notably canceling games just to avoid the RPI hit. And he also made a good point after that quote was made, that he goes, yeah, come tell me when that actually affects their postseason, though.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're talking – the teams we're talking about, like you said, Rob, we're talking about a lot of SEC teams canceling games, ACC teams canceling games. You're going to go tell the big teams, the big-time market teams that – you know what? You were on the cusp, but since you canceled that game, you're not going to make the put. I don't think anybody at that level is going to actually bring the hammer down when it comes to making it matter, right?
I agree. I think we'd all agree for sure.
Yeah. One thing I would like to see, and TJ's making some good comments here, like especially that Coastal one. They take 2 of 3 from Georgia Southern, win the series. It's a conference game. They must play it. Doesn't matter what happens. And they take a hit. It's like, all right, I can see if you thought you were scheduling a easy win and whatever before the season, but when you have to play a conference game, I don't know how much that should hurt you.
It shouldn't, but when you lose, when you're a top 10 RPI team and you drop a game to someone that's 220, that does hurt. It'll be interesting to see if they have swept the series, if their RPI changed at all, but losing that game that they had to play didn't do them any favors.
Good point. Yeah, I mean, you're right. You're right. You should lose points for a loss. So I'm not going to be bad on that. But and I don't know exactly what it was. It shouldn't be extremely significant, I guess, is what I should say. But I don't think it was really. I mean, what did we see? They're still, even with the loss on Tuesday night to Clemson. They're still 22.
They went from 9 to 22.
Yeah, that one hurt worse.
I'll give credit to Texas A&M. I mean, they played Prairie View yesterday, who's 8-35, and that's why they dropped. That's why Southern Miss moved up, because I think A&M dropped 3-4 spots for winning that game 16-7. So,
yeah, that's tough. That is tough. Artie's our big Texas State fan, Rob. He's saying, the retired rotation balance, and they forgot to tighten the lug nuts here. Wheels have fallen off, but they did beat Baylor. Does that help it sure does help your RPI, Artie, because you jumped up a little bit. And again, you're over with the teams in the 100 RPI, which doesn't make sense. But that's, again, how this conference is beating up on each other so much during the season, that, we're going from like a couple years ago, Marvel, we had like 4, almost 5 teams in for like a year or two. Now we're getting 2 at best. Now, if we get 2 and people keep hosting and everything, then that'd be something to talk about.
Let's face it, last year we got 2 teams in, and one of them made the national championship, so that definitely helps. But, as we always say, not a mid-major baseball conference, right? You got to continuously put 3-4 teams in.
Yeah. If we want to have that moniker, if we want it to be true, we do have to be hitting a little bit more on all cylinders, and not dropping games out of conference that are really bad and ugly losses. That's where the RPI issues have really come from. Because if everybody's winning outside of conference or doing fairly well, you're not going to have a problem when you beat each other up a little bit within the conference. We've seen SEC does it, right? Like some top teams get swept, but they don't drop very much because they played, a highly ranked team. Like we need those types of situations in the Sunbelt a little bit more. And we don't quite have that, backing or the thought process behind us. That's where that moniker with the RPI comes in. Okay, so let's get to the fun part of the episode here. Rob, let's talk with you on these top 25 rankings. This one, of course, is coming from D1 Baseball. This is the one that NCAA uses on their official website for rankings. That's what we use. We see Coastal there at number 8 and Southern Miss there at 12 within the Sun Belt. And I mean, just quick notes on their rankings, and then we'll obviously jump over to yours and show kind of the differences there.
Sure. And I usually I pay more attention to everyone's rankings. For some reason this year I hadn't been looking at them as much, but D1 does a good job. I've noticed, and maybe it's just me, I feel like this year, maybe a little last year, D1s in our rankings are looking a lot more similar than historically they have. They got Coastal, like you said, they got Coastal up there pretty good. I think they got them. You said number 8. It looks like I think I got them 7. I know we'll come back to mine later, but I think everyone's got the top 6 are about the same. It may not be exact order, but UCLA, North Carolina, the top Auburn. I think Georgia Tech. Those everyone has. I think those 6. After that, it starts changing up a little bit. D1 to Kansas, it's 7. Kansas is Kansas is strong this year. They've impressed me, but I think 7 is a little high. Coastal 8, I think that's fine. A&M right there, they've got them at 9. I think I got them at 8. I mean, I can't argue too much with what I see, top 15 or so anyway, with D1. Oregon, I think they got Oregon high. I think I had Oregon high. I kind of reassessed Oregon, even though they won this past weekend. I usually kind of towards the end of the year, I'll take a look and assess Rob's rankings myself and say, look, and just kind of say, I mean, I'm always looking at everyone's resumes, but, you get into week 9, 10, 11, you get into the mode of going, okay, this team won, move them up. This team lost, move them down. How bad did they win or lose? Move them up, down based on that. And usually you get towards the end, for me anyway, I go, well, let me just reassess everything, because I was looking at Oregon in particular. I'm like, they really hadn't played that many teams. And I'm compare that to say what some of the teams SEC teams have played, and I'm like, I just, even though they won, I think I dropped them. I know I dropped them a few spots. So I think D1 has Oregon high. I think D1 and myself have Oregon State high. Their schedule may be even worse than Oregon's. I mean, Oregon's about to figure out some things. So they have UCLA and USC the next 2 weeks. So we'll find out if they're to be number 13 higher or much lower. But yeah, D1's in Florida State, no problem there. I think they have West Virginia a little high. Arizona State, I think they're a little high. I think it was similar. I think I knocked Arizona State. I'd have to go back and look, but I thought I had Arizona State a little high. I think they won, and I've got them at 19. I mean, we're not too far apart there. I see Arkansas. They have Arkansas at 17. I moved Arkansas up. I had a whole lot of complaints about D1. I'd love to rip D1. That's how I started, kind of making fun of their, what are y'all doing? So I would love to jump in there and do it, but I think they've done a pretty good job overall right now. Maybe they're following Rob's rankings a little more, paying attention. I try to get mine out there first, so no one can say I'm following someone else's lead. So I don't know if they're paying attention, but maybe not.
Yeah. Hey, if you're putting pressure on them, you're doing something right. And like I said, I have routinely seniors come out and said, this guy knows what he's doing. Everyone's going to have some slight variation, but like a lot of the times you see at least one or two teams in somebody's top 25 and you go, why are they there? I don't hardly ever see that with yours. So I really liked what you're doing there. If there's one team that you don't think belongs in the top 25 in D1, which one is it? And then we'll jump over to yours and talk about
I'd go Nebraska. I'd say Nebraska. I think I had them in there last week. I think they lost. They must have lost, or I just reassessed them and thought they didn't deserve it. But I'd say Nebraska. I think up and down there, just looking at their resume, they got swept by Ohio State. So that's who I would pick from D1. I just don't think that's who I pulled out of there was Nebraska.
Nice. Yeah, an Ohio State team who lost to Marshall.
Yeah, they did.
Which is not even a top 7 sunbelt team. So there we go. So let's jump over to yours. Before you start breaking down a little bit of the teams, tell us a little bit about your method here. Also, I guess let's go before that. Like, what made you get into this? I mean, did you play baseball growing up and you've just loved the sport and just taken in all the time? And then tell us how that took you into your ranking system.
Yeah, I played, and growing up as a kid, I didn't play in college. I played in high school, and just a general college baseball fan. And what really got me into it it's kind of like what happened with Texas A&M. It was last year. Remember, they were the unanimous consensus number ones across the board. And, I guess looking at their team, they probably should have been. But they were losing and kept losing. And I think they had to really get beat down for all the outlets to pull them out of the top 25. And I got them out pretty quickly because I don't rank until after 2 weeks. And so going back to 2022, it was a fairly similar situation with Mississippi State. I think they came off of a national championship. And so they were, I think, number one on an outlet or two, but they just did really poorly in the beginning. And they remained number 5, number 10, number 15. The teams that would beat them, they would rank them, but they would not get Mississippi State out of there. And so you got teams like, I don't know, Troy, South Alabama, whomever, they're, playing the best they can and doing good, but they can't leapfrog these teams. It's tough to leapfrog these teams to get into the top 25. So, whenever these other outlets have their hearts, I don't say heart, but, the heart set on these teams, they put it number 1, 2, and 3, and then they lose early. They have a tendency to just leave them in the top 10 or 15 until they just really get throttled. And so that aggravated me. I just said, hell, I could do this. So that's that's the kind of way I started it and decided to wait 2 weeks. So they have a little bit of a resume. Usually after 2 weeks, you got about at least 7 games played, and that's better than nothing. And so, as opposed to ranking teams based on, I guess, the names on the back of the jerseys or front of the jerseys, I'd like to look at the results on the field. So, and I get it why they have Mississippi State or A&M or these other teams ranked really high preseason. They'll look and say, well, they got 3 All-Americans returning or 5 All-Conference players, and they should be ranked because of that in a preseason. But I don't really care about the names. I'll admit I'm not familiar with all the rosters on these teams. I don't do what D1 baseball does. They do a great job. I can't speak to all the great players and All-Americans on all the teams. I just look at the results on the field and go, okay, well, this team lost to these teams and this team beat this team and beat them. Sometimes I'll take into consideration how bad, you win or lose. And I just look at the resumes. I'll look at other things. If it's, a tie, or if I'm having trouble, I will look every now and then at ELOs. That's Warren Nolan's. I call it Warren Nolan's ELO. I'll look at RPI. You can't really start looking at RPI until, I don't know, halfway through the season. But that's pretty much what I do. I'm just looking at resumes. For the most part, that's what I'm doing. It's not a whole lot of magic to it, but I'll dig deep. I like to find the Mercers, Wofford's, the Campbells. Those are some good baseball programs. And if you go the first third of the year, they're playing as many good teams or better than, say, Georgia. I mean, it took me forever to get Georgia in here, and I took some heat from it, but they weren't playing anybody. I think their RPI may be suffering a little bit right now because of that. Now, they're a good team, but I wasn't going to just put them in because they're Georgia and SEC. They weren't playing anybody. So, anyway, that's my general outlook on how I look at it. I go off the results on the field.
Nice. Marv, you got any questions for him?
No, I want to see the side by side because, kind of what Rob said about teams getting out. We see it in football, right? You see the preseason rankings come out, and then a team drops 2 games. It was like, oh, that's Alabama. They're going to be just fine. Let's just leave them in there. And you got teams that have played tougher opponents and had better results, and maybe they don't have as big of a name, and it's hard for them to get in. So I agree with you on that. There's definitely some name bias and conference bias that goes on.
Yeah, there definitely is. One more thing before we go back to the side by side here. An interesting aspect, because I've done a little bit of ranking stuff, but not with baseball. It was with football. I do like a list that includes like the top 40, I think, so that when I do move people, like I already have like kind of a set list. Do you rank a lot more than the top 25, or do you just kind of keep note of like who is close, before the next week starts and stuff like that?
Yeah, the latter. I don't rank much more than a top 25. I'll go. I just rank top 25, but I may have, usually it depends, 1 to maybe 8 or 9 teams on the side. So, I rank 25. I might consider 35, and then I'll, assess them all, looking at resumes, looking at a number of things. It's usually just resumes, and it's a few other things I'll look at. Everything I can, I'll look at, but I'll just compare who they played, and do about 35 or so. Sometimes it's only 26, 27. Sometimes I struggle to find 25, to be honest. And you may see me, tweet about that on it. It's tough to find 25, and the 25 don't want to be ranked. But I don't go all 40 or 50 or more. So.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. The reason I did it that way is because I was like, man, I got like a team that I think might be on the cusp. And then when I go to do it the next week, I'm like, if they don't play or something, right? You're just like, oh, they're not in my mind. They didn't play this week, but they were close. So if a couple teams lose, I kind of automatically maybe move them up. whatever. I just wanted to see, how other people did that. Because like I said, I'm definitely not an expert, even with the football aspect, but I do know a little bit more about that than baseball. So I was wondering if you did something similar. So it does sound like you've got some teams, though, on that side that you could just jump in there. So here is the side-by-side. I like that you got UTSA in here. Again, like you said, you're not looking for the name on the front of the jersey. So let's start with them. Obviously not a sunbelt team, but they do have a little rivalry with Texas State. So talk about the UTSA Roadrunners there for a minute.
Yeah, I think UTSA is a solid team. I remember a couple of years ago, I think they kind of got screwed. I think they should have made a tournament and did not. It's just a really solid program. And I think somebody's in for some trouble if whoever gets UTSA in their regional. I'm not sure who they play. I think they have Dallas Baptist left. I could be wrong, and maybe a team that's not quite as good, but I think they're in for a solid finish, and I'm going to be interested to see where they go and what they do. But I think that's a good baseball program, good baseball team this year. I'm surprised others don't have them ranked, but again, that's not a prolific name, I guess, on the front of the jersey, the UTSA, to a lot of folks looking at it. But I think they're going to put some hurt on somebody in a regional, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So then, another one that I'm seeing is different is D1's got BC at 22. You don't have BC at all in your rankings. Is that a team that's kind of off the cusp a little bit, or is that one that you just don't think deserves a top 25 consideration?
Yeah, I had them ranked, and I struggled. They were someone on the cusp. I considered keeping them in. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the deciding factor. This was the week I kind of did some reassessment, so I did look at Boston College. Pretty good. And I think it came down to comparing their resume. Well, they came off of a loss to Clemson. I think I had them. I don't remember what I had them last week, 2022. I'm not sure. They lost to Clemson, who's been struggling. But they were one I was looking at, and I almost kept them in there. But comparing them to maybe some of the resumes with some SEC teams, I put those over Boston College.
I like this. So to me, I agree with you a little bit. Like as I rank teams too, I wasn't afraid of movement, right? Like if you are good enough, you will get back in here, or you have the schedule and resume to be able to do it. Whereas like a Jack State, for example, they probably don't have a whole lot of resume builders left on their schedule. Like, a BC does when they play in the ACC and they play 6 or 7 ranked opponents throughout the year. So I like the fact that you're, again, taking away that bias of the big schools all belong here because they spend more money, so they're automatically better. I'm simplifying it, obviously, but that's typically your kind of argument. Well, our roster costs this and all of this stuff now. I got a good question here. We got Stephanie chiming in going, hey, go Troy. She's a big Troy fan. Caden saying A-State should be ranked. I think at one point they were, Rob, for you maybe earlier in the season. And I think they're kind of further away now. But TJ's got a good question. West Virginia, much lower in yours than in D1s. What do they need to do to move up for you? Is there like a certain resume builder, or is it really just kind of the matchup dependent?
It's just win the games. I think West Virginia again is one I reassessed a lot, and I probably just looked at their overall resume. I just dropped. The reason I moved some of these teams, to be honest, I just think these SEC teams are a lot more solid than some of these, Big 12 teams, and in Oregon's Big 10. So some of these teams, I just, I had some a little more odd movements this week than I usually do. But back to West Virginia, that's a good team. They've got a good program, especially I think the last few years. They're good. I don't have a big knock on them other than I think their strength of schedule is a little low. I'll tell you something else I do look at is their, the quad one games. And they're not bad there. I'm looking now; they're 5-4, but they hadn't had quite as many as some of these other schools. But their schedule overall, just I don't know. I just didn't have it enough there for them to be too much higher. I see they swept K State this past week. K State was really hot earlier this year. I think that's a good baseball team. But I don't know. Just looking at overall, I just don't have West Virginia right there. They're going to have a big opportunity against Kansas this week. Big opportunity there, and TCU have them next, and that is no slouch. TCU can make a little bit of a run. So West Virginia has a big opportunity ahead of them. So it could go either way. And I'd love for them to knock off Kansas and TCU and see what they can do, because they're not like a typical big time, blue blood baseball program. And so I'd love to see them, get there. I'm happy to see Kansas doing really good too. So
yeah,
it's still ahead. It's still all ahead for West Virginia.
Yeah, I'll give them a little credit. That was one of those RPI differences that they had against Marshall here recently, and they'd already canceled the games for some weather earlier in the season, so they probably could have tried to cancel that, and they didn't. They played it the other night, so respect to the Mountaineers at least for that much of it. Daryl's got a question here saying, Coastal fan, am I correct in assuming that if we win out, they'll still drop in rankings due to the RPI of opponents? Rob, you want to expand on, whether you're dropping a team for winning against teams that they, should easily beat kind of thing?
No, I don't. For my rankings, I don't anticipate dropping Coastal unless they lose some games. They've got Old Dominion coming up. I expect them to sweep Old Dominion. I hope I'm not jinxing them there. And then they've got a very tough series with Louisiana Lafayette. That's not an easy place to play in Lafayette. So I'm really interested to see how Coastal and the Raging Cajuns match up. I think if Coastal takes care of business and wins that tournament, the sunbelt tournament, they'll be a national seed. And I say take care of business. I think sweep Old Dominion 2 out of 3 in Lafayette against the Raging Cajuns and win the tournament. I think they're a national seed. I think they're going to host. I think they're going to host either way, unless they just completely fall on their face, But they should take care of Old Dominion. They should win that series against the Cajuns. But if they lose that series against the Cajuns, that's different. They may not. They may lose that hosting opportunity. They probably will. But I don't know. I can't wait to see what happens. That's a big series for both of those teams.
Yeah, very much so. Marv, you want to jump in here with anything you want to ask?
Yeah, so on the Coastal part, I'm with Rob. I think they take care of business against Old Dominion, whether it's sweep 2-1. I think that they could still lose 2-1 to the Cajuns, and they've done enough that they probably still host and get a top 16 seed. But does that affect maybe if they get through that they don't host a super? I think that's the biggest question for me. And also keep in mind with Coastal, they got a very sneaky game next week against the Citadel, who has given Sunbelt teams all kinds of fits this year.
Yeah, it has. Another Sunbelt specific question here from Caden. Rob, is there a chance for A-State to be ranked again before the season ends? And if so, what do they need to do? I would assume pretty much win out, but is their resume probably good enough to jump anybody, I guess is the question here?
For Arkansas State to get ranked, if they win out, I won't say no. They got a pretty good RPI and beating Texas State. I would say it depends a lot, obviously, on who loses above them. A lot of that just depends on that. How bad, if they win those series, take 2 out of 3. I don't think that'd get them there. But if they go and do sweep, they're going to have a lot of people's attention. They'll have my attention. And so, they would definitely have a shot at it. So I won't rule it out. They just need to win and win big. But I think taking 2 out of 3 against Texas State and South Alabama probably is not enough to get them ranked.
I think their last 2 weekend series, they dropped 2 out of 3 at Louisiana, then dropped 2 out of 3 at ODU. I think that might have cemented them in the, and I hate to say it, like not in the conversation anymore.
Yeah. Sadly for a ranking,
but they do have, like Rob said, they have Texas State and South Alabama. They have two decent RPI teams ahead of them. I think they got a sweep. I don't think they can lose again.
Yeah. Well, probably sweep paired with a number of other teams in the bottom part of the top 25 losing enough to kind of help their case because, again, resume building wise, it's not bad, but it's not ranked teams from the ACC and SEC that they're going to be able to use to leapfrog anybody. So a little bit interesting there. Any other notes, Rob, maybe that you specifically want to touch on, or any teams specifically you want to make mention of?
Let me think. I was looking at Wake. What was that? I made a note about Wake Forest for some reason. I think. I jumped, outside the Sun Belt. I don't know if you meant in the Sun Belt or outside the Sun Belt. But as far as the Sun Belt, I'll go back to that. Troy. I think, unfortunately for them, even though they got a good RPI and it's a good program, their record is not there. I don't think there's anything they can do, to get in the tournament. I do think, again, Arkansas State, South Alabama, Louisiana Lafayette, maybe Texas State have a shot if they, if they get hot. But that as far as the Sun Belt goes, that's kind of my outlook.
Rob, let me ask you this question, and obviously it can't happen because a lot of these teams are going to play each other, but you got App State, South Alabama, Troy, Louisiana, Arkansas State. Assuming that any one of those 5 teams were to win out, and I'm talking win the rest of the regular season games, and let's say they make it to the championship game of the Sun Belt tournament, whether they play Southern Miss or Coastal, which one of those 5 teams do you think would have the best chance of making a regional?
When you say win out, not sweeps, just win the tournaments and then make it to the championship.
I'm talking about you don't lose another game in the regular season and you make it all the way to the championship game of the Sun Belt tournament. Let's say you lose to a Coastal or a Southern Miss, but you win your next 7, you win 2 or 3 in the tournament. Which of those 4 teams do you think would have the best shot of, let's call it, sneaking into a regional? We know they're not going to host.
Gotcha. Probably Louisiana. Yeah, probably Louisiana. They got a pretty good RPI, and if they go through and hammer Coastal, then that's pretty strong, right?
Yeah.
So they probably have the best outlook, and they have, looking at records, they got 30 wins. That's a little, every win counts. A lot of times when they're looking at that stuff, App State's got there's 28 and 18. But I think Louisiana would have the best shot if they win out and go to that championship game.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think the other team. I think if Arkansas State does the same, South Alabama does the same, they're all get in. I was looking, earlier today, trying to figure if there's a way to get 4 teams in from the Sun Belt, and without someone winning the, I didn't even think about it. Of course, if one of them sneaks in and wins the tournament, it always gets you an extra team. But I think it's possible. But they're probably just going to shoot and hope for get 3 instead of hoping for 4. Yeah. But I think they're going to find a way, the Sun Belt, to get 3 teams in. But someone's got to take charge. They can't just split these series. Win a series, lose a series. Someone's got to win a couple series in a row and do some damage in the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. Joshua's got a question here. Any chance for Southern Miss to be a national seed? I'll go ahead and say, from what I've seen out there, nobody has them, I don't think, in that type of spot right now. But I don't know, Rob, if you've looked ahead enough for Southern Miss specifically or anything to think if they've got a shot here for that to be something that they could obtain.
I do. I think Coastal or Southern Miss. Southern's going to be tricky because they've got these next two series are probably on paper the weakest two teams they've played, right? So they're going to take a little bit of an RPI hit, but they also have probably their best chance to go sweep. And they've kind of finally, I know they're at the end of the year, but they finally got their starting rotation figured out. That's looking actually as good as it's ever looked all year. Mm-hmm. So I think if they go sweep and win the tournament, I think they'll be a national seed. I really do. And of course, Coastal, I know he asked about Southern Miss, but, Coastal, I think the same. If they take care of business and win the tournament, I think they'll be a national seed. So Southern Miss or Coastal take care of business, win the tournament. I think they'll be in there. Southern Miss could I'd say win these series. It'll probably need a sweep, at least in one, and win a game or two in the tournament, and they should host. But I do think it's a shot to get a national seed.
I'll answer Chad's question real quick. Do they have a chance of taking them 3 games back? Right? Does USM have a chance of overtaking Coastal? The 3 games back, as Rob just said, they have JMU and Georgia Southern. So it is not out of the question that they could win their next 6 games. But to gain 3 games on Coastal, Coastal would have to drop series to ODU and Louisiana. I don't think they drop series to ODU. So I don't think they could overcome them. Not being 3 games back, 6 games.
I wouldn't foresee that happening. I mean, could it happen? Like you said, they could win these 6 games, but counting on Coastal losing a couple, I don't know. That's gonna be very tough to overcome. I don't think Coastal's going to lose a game to Old Dominion, so that would mean they'd have to get swept by Louisiana,
and then they would tie.
Yeah. So I don't see it, but stranger things have happened.
It is baseball.
It is. It is. All right. So we're going to have a couple questions here. We're going to skip a lot of the score rehashing. I think we've been doing that indirectly here this whole time, right? But without doing that, we still have something to talk about from last night we touched on earlier. Rob, what are your thoughts about last night's 12-0 no-hitter for A-State Skylar Tangler? 9 innings pitched, 0 hits, 0 runs, 9 Ks, complete game shutout.
Yeah, I saw that. That's phenomenal. And I hadn't looked too much into that kid, but I think it was kind of from out of nowhere, wasn't it? It's not like he's just been mowing them down all year, from what I understand. So that's phenomenal, and they're looking pretty good for Arkansas State to have someone like that. They're stepping up come tournament time. So that's big.
Yeah. Marv, have any of the kids that you've been coaching thrown a no-no yet?
You see it sometimes in Little League, but it's like because you only get to play 3 or 4 innings because of time limit. So nowhere near as impressive as, let's face it, like Arkansas, Little Rock. Those are all D1 baseball players. Like to go out, I don't care if it's a Tuesday night or Friday series, to have 27 guys come up and 27 guys not get a hit, that's impressive.
Yeah, here you go. This is what Rob was alluding to. Tangler had only thrown 3.2 innings prior to last night. So absolutely, Rob, this came from nowhere, not because necessarily the kid's not capable. We just didn't know he was capable, right? He wasn't one of those pitchers that we had up high in our notes from earlier in the season, and it makes sense. And it was first A-State no-hitter since 2005. So if everyone's like, well, there's probably been a bunch of them, and no, this is something that does not happen often, and specifically for A-State in over 20 years. So that's really, really cool to have happen. I saw a lot of little interviews and comments from a lot of people there. So that was a pretty fun thing. Ben saying JMU is another sneaky team. Sneaky. Yeah, to some extent, like sneaky as in don't overlook them. I'll agree. I don't think like sneaky is going to come up there and beat Southern Miss or Coastal, but we'll see, TJ saying a whole lot of coastal sweep talk, and maybe I'm just a little stitious. Been saying 7th all-time no-hitter for A-State. Yeah, so in the run of A-State baseball history, there has only been 7 all-time. That's pretty crazy there. One thing, since we are going to skip like a lot of the rehashing of the game scores, I do want to get to, though, is Mercer beat Georgia Southern 10-7 tonight, by the way, just to, rub a little salt in the wound of the Eagles fans.
Hey, Troy got a ranked win last night.
They did, yeah. You should mention that. Absolutely. A Troy victory over Alabama 6-1, if I'm remembering off the top of my head correctly, I think.
6-1, 7-1, somewhere in there. It was a really quality win for them coming off losing a series at home.
Yeah, it was 6-1. Can confirm. Rob, we're talking about the Cajuns possibly, trying to end a little stronger. How much did 9-6 loss in New Orleans hurt them last night?
Yeah, that hurt bad. I think that hurt really bad. I don't know how many RPI points they lost, but not good, especially this time of year. It gets noticed a little bit more. I was really pulling for them to win that game because they looked like they might have been turned into corner a little bit, getting a little hot, and they needed to win that game. So that was not good. So.
Yeah, 10 RPI points is exactly what they lost. Since I had that graph up, I went back and checked while you were talking on that point. So TJ jumping on the JMU baseball bandwagon hate there. Definitely sneaky. Sometimes you look up and say, oh, JMU is playing in this game? All right, so we'll end with this. All right, this is the weekend series as it looks in the Sun Belt. ODU travels to number 8 Coastal Carolina. ULM traveling to Marshall. The Cajuns go up to Boone to play App State. Number 12 Southern Miss on the road in Harrisonburg against James Madison. South Alabama at Troy. We know the rivalry there is a great one, so that one should be fun, regardless of if those two teams were in the upper portion of this conference. But luckily they are, so added bonus there. Texas State on the road at A-State, and Georgia teams play each other. Georgia State going on the road to play Georgia Southern in Statesboro. I'll start with Marv. Rob, we do this little thing where we pick out our weekend series of the week. So think about what yours would be, and I'll get Marv's thoughts first to start us off.
I mean, obviously, there's 3 really big series here that have a lot of implications, not only for RPI, but for seeding in the conference tournament. I think Alabama, Troy, you got the 4 versus 5 team going against one another. But like I said, you could say the same thing with App versus Louisiana and Texas State versus Arkansas State. But just because of where they're ranked, the RPIs are pretty close. And, 4 and 5 in the conference, I would say South Alabama at Troy.
Nice. I'm going to have a hard time disagreeing with that, but we'll see if Rob has something different picked up.
No, I feel the same way. The 3 that you mentioned, South Alabama, Troy, that's just going to be a big series. Louisiana and App State, and then, of course, Texas State and Arkansas State. But I feel like the South Alabama, Troy is just a little bit more, the bigger one to look at.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Ben saying he can see A-State, Texas State going either way in a 2-1 series. I think that might be a pretty likely outcome. Yes, I think it'll be interesting to see when the picks come in this week what that looks like. He's also given a shout out to New Orleans to join the Sun Belt. Well, they are in the headquartered city. Yeah, I mean, you got the Cajuns, the Cajuns from Louisiana going up to a mountain to play a team in Boone. It's kind of those like differentiating aspects and then close in the standings. But I'm going to have a hard time disagreeing with either of you. For me, South Alabama, Troy, close in the standings, close in the RPI, and they love to hate each other. There's nothing better than a little Sunbelt hate going on this weekend when it comes to the baseball. So I'm taking the Jags versus the Trojans as well. Definitely going to be tuning into some of those games in that series. And then TJ saying his hot take is that ULM sweeps Marshall, which will be interesting. Would be interesting to see that. A-State wants
that could happen. That could happen. Monroe was looking really good earlier this year. They sloughed off a little bit, but they got a good team.
They absolutely do. This was Awesome. A lot of fun to talk to you, Rob, about how you get things done, how you look at it, and talking Sunbelt with us. We really appreciate you jumping on the stream with us tonight. Tell the people specifically where they can find you and follow along.
It's at Rob's Rankings on X. I do have a website, robsrankings.com. Not much on it. You look at it, it looks pretty sophisticated. If you've ever been on it, you might have picked up on that. But it's pretty simple. I just have the rankings there. But best place is on X, Twitter, at Rob's Rankings.
Yeah, he does a phenomenal job, guys, sharing his stuff. Maybe the website is no frills, but what's nice about that is it's really easy to find everything you're looking for. So you do have that going for you. When you click, there's not a whole bunch of crap that pops up and inundated with this and that. So it works really well for what you want. Marv, where can the people find you? I don't ever ask you that question, but if you want the people to follow you, shout it out.
I don't even know my Instagram or X handle, to be completely honest with you. I don't do a ton of social media, but if you want to find me, you can go to a youth baseball field somewhere in the Raleigh area, and there's a good chance you'll find me.
There you go. And here, a really important note, especially because we won't go live again until after this. Ben James with a great important shout out. Happy Mother's Day weekend to all the moms out there.
Absolutely.
And absolutely agree with that. For the women in your life that mean a lot to you, don't forget that. Get your stuff ready.
Sure. Appreciate y'all having me on. I enjoyed it. Y'all do a great job, and I like to keep up with what y'all do as well.
All right. Well, don't go anywhere, Rob. We'll end the show, and we'll talk to you before we head out. But to everybody else listening and tuning in, thank you so much for interacting and sharing your comments and questions with us. You can find this on the audio version if you'd rather listen than watch, and always the replay on YouTube right after. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next.
Sunbelt Syndicate.